What exactly is Affinity, and should you really care about it? As always, let's baseline what Affinity is so that we're all on the same page before deciding if it's worth it or not. Affinity is Monster Hunter's version of Critical Chance. Each hunter starts out at 0% Affinity, but certain weapons will have innate Affinity built onto them. But that Affinity percentage can also be manipulated by other equipment and skills as well. You can check your total Affinity by checking the attack stat portion of the equipment info screen. Once you have any amount of percentage in Affinity equipped, some of your hits may display an extra flashy slash animation and a slightly different damage sound than normal.
If there's too much visual clutter, you can also tell by looking at the top of your damage number. There's going to be a red slash star looking indicator that lets you know that that particular hit of damage is a critical hit.
Critical hits apply a 25% damage bonus to raw physical damage, and this is where the complexity begins. To be clear, without any additional skill, Affinity has no bearings on elemental damage. So if you are a weapon type that relies heavily on elemental damage, Affinity may not matter for you as much. Also, in Monster Hunter, there is such a thing as negative Affinity, which will change your 25% damage bonus into a 25% damage reduction if you do land that critical hit. The negative critical hit will also have a slightly different animation. Innate negative Affinity is most often seen on weapons with a very high raw damage stat in the early game. While it can be scary to see that negative number, it's not a determinant for if the weapon is bad or not.
For example, if it's a weapon with a pretty good attack value, good sharpness, and relies more on element, then the negative Affinity becomes a bit more negligible because one, it doesn't impact their element like we discussed, and also, the raw value of their sharpness and the attack just overwhelms that 25% damage decrease you'll get some of the time.
If you want to learn about how sharpness can impact your damage, there should be a video link on the top right corner of the screen or description below. With those two things, a negative 25% or 30 Affinity is going to be negligible compared to the raw amount of damage you're going to deal on average. There are many skills in Monster Hunter Wilds that can also augment the percentage chance of your Affinity or the value of that Affinity hit itself. For example, the 25% damage bonus can be increased further with skills like Critical Boost, while skills like Weakness Exploit, depending on its level, can provide a substantial amount of Affinity as long as you're hitting a monster's weak point. Slapping on this one skill could neutralize the need for any sort of Affinity up skills as long as you're precise with your attacks. Later on in the game, you'll also be able to spec into skills like Critical Element, which grants a skill level dependent damage increase to your elemental attacks whenever you land a critical hit. For all my dual blades homie, beware, Critical Boost does not stack with Critical Element. Critical Boost will only increase the raw damage when you land that critical hit. Keep that in mind. Overall, is Affinity worth it? Well, like everything else in this world, it depends. Generally, yes. More Affinity means more chances to deal a 25% damage bonus. Can't go wrong. More damage is always good. Is it necessary? No, not at all. For certain builds or setups, Affinity just won't matter. I will say though, if you're a gambler, maybe putting 5% Affinity on just so that way you can maybe sometimes get the damage boost could be fun for you. Most of the time it won't proc, but for one skill point you might sometimes get that nice critical hit. If your weapon type or build or setup revolves heavily around elemental damage and you don't have critical elements, then does it really matter? I mean, yes, because raw will always deal some amount of damage, but it's not worth stressing out about. Think about it this way. A 25% damage penalty to 4 damage makes it so you deal 3 damage. If your raw damage is not very good, negative Affinity will not impact you that much. And that's pretty much it about Affinity. See, that wasn't so bad. If you found this video helpful, hit that like button and subscribe for more Monster Hunter Wilds content. If you're confused about any other mechanic within this game, be sure to leave a comment so others in the community can help you out. And maybe, who knows, it might become a video topic in the near future. For more useful information, check out this video on screen right now. My name is Varsana, and I'll see you in the next video.